And we are live. Hello to anybody that's here. Probably nobody yet because we just started. I say this every time, but I'm here today with Alessandra Torre, and she is a romance author. And so we are going to talk about being an author. Yeah, I have like some questions for you. We're also going to talk about being the CEO of Binge Books, which is a new book website. So that's exciting. And yeah, but I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and give everybody a feel of who you are.
Sure. So, hey guys, I'm Alessandra Torre. I write romance and suspense. I write both. And I started writing in 2012. Before that, I never ever thought about being a writer. I was always a reader, and I read everything, every genre imaginable I read, except nonfiction. And but I started writing in 2012, and now 25 books later, I'm here today. And I joined up with 20 other authors to form Binge Books a little over a year ago, probably a year and a half ago. So about Binge Books today, but just want to chat with you guys all about my favorite topic on earth, which is books, and yeah, and see what Eric's all up to.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm excited to get into Binge Books and like go over it because I've talked with other people from Binge Books about it, and it's a really cool site. There are definitely some features on there that like I know a lot of people that use Goodreads would be happy to see.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there are definitely
talk a lot about Goodreads.
Yeah, there's definitely some things about Goodreads that people do not like. And so I can see that in Binge Books there are some things that are fixed that they want Goodreads to fix. So like this is a good thing. This is a good thing for readers everywhere. Yeah, but anyways, I have some questions for you about being an author, which I'll ask first before we jump into that. So I wanted to know, how long have you been writing, and like what started your writing journey?
Yeah, what started my path? So I graduated from college. I thought I was going to work in resorts. Like that was my like dream, was to travel the world and work in resorts. And I started doing that and realized very quickly that it was not nearly as glamorous as I had envisioned. But I also just wasn't the right mentality for working in hotels. I was way too invested in the guests. So I would be like up at night worried that Mr. Johnson didn't get his towels, right? Because I had to see him the next morning when he checked out, right? So I worked in banking and I was an assistant for a really long time, like for a real estate developer. And I lost my job in 2012. The company I was working for sold. And it was really like I was sitting there like just trying to figure out like what I really wanted to do with my life. And I was looking for another job, and I was just I had this summer ahead of me where I was trying to figure things out. And my mom started to write a book with this guy she met online, and she was telling me all about it. And she was telling me about self-publishing, which was something just I had never heard of and didn't know anything about. And back now it seems super basic and obvious, but back then in 2012, it was just crazy. Like I had always thought, oh, I would love to be a book editor. Like, you know, when you fantasize about things, I thought I'd be a great book editor because I found this typo in this book once, you know, and I thought that made me qualified to be a book editor.
Yeah.
And so she was telling me about self-publishing. I was like, wow, so you're going to write a book and you're going to put it for sale and anyone can go online and find it. And she was like, yep. And I thought to myself, and I didn't say anything to her, but I thought to myself, like, like maybe I should write a book, because I was always a reader. I read anything and everything. And I was like a really grouchy reader, and I would just pick apart books that I read. And my husband was always like, well, if you think you're so smart, why don't you write a book? You know, and I'd always be like, ha ha. So that summer I was like, you know, maybe I'll write a book and maybe it'll be wildly successful. But I didn't really think it would be. I really had no confidence in my writing at all. Writing was always something I really enjoyed doing for school, but I was never encouraged. No teacher was ever like, oh my gosh, like I would turn in what I thought was just like Pulitzer Prize, you know, winning material, and I get like a B-, you know, and it really deflated me. Like I thought, okay, I like writing, but I'm obviously not very good at it. But this was kind of just a secret thing I did. I didn't tell a soul about it other than my husband. And I just sat down and wrote a book in 6 weeks, was my first draft. And it ended up being a romance novel, which I had never read romance. I had always just like poo-pooed romance and turned my nose up at it. And it was the one genre I just never read. So I didn't know anything about it. And I ended up writing a romance novel. I broke like every genre rule imaginable with this romance novel. And I stuck it online, and we didn't tell anybody. I mean, it was sexy. And I was like, no one can know that I ever wrote this book. I will never be able to show my face in public. And it did like okay. I mean, it was selling like 3 to 10 copies a day. And I got out my calculator and I was like, okay, if I wrote 10 books and they each sold 5 copies a day, then I'd be making like $100 a day. And I could just do this as my new job. Like I can live on $35,000 a year. And so that was kind of the thought, but it was like, okay, well, it's going to take a while for me to write 10 books. So I'm also going to have to find another job. But then 3 months in, or 2.5 months in, that book just went nuts. And I just started selling hundreds and then thousands of copies a day. And agents and publishers were emailing and calling me. And I ended up getting an agent and selling that book and another book and a 2-book deal to Harlequin. And it was suddenly like, wow. Oh my gosh, like I have to tell my family about this now because I have all this money. Like they just paid me, and I don't like. My mom's like, when are you going to get a job? And now I have a job. Like this will be my new job. And I wasn't really sure how it would go, but I had gained some confidence throughout. Like at that point I had lots of reviews, and that was 8 years ago. And so now 24 books later, here I am. So now I'm stuck with it. So I got to make it work. Yeah.
No, that's awesome though. That's really cool that you were just like thinking about getting a job, and then all of a sudden you have this book that just like explodes, and now you have a job. That's cool. That's really awesome.
It's good and bad. It changes the dynamic a lot when you become, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be a full-time author. That would be so cool. Yeah. But it changes so much. But when you go from like writing a book and being like, oh, I hope it's successful, and wow, I sold 100 books today or copies today, to being like, if I don't sell 100 copies today, like I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. Like, so that is a completely different mindset to write a book in. And it really puts just a ton of pressure on you for those books to be successful. So I always tell people like, don't quit your day job, because you could easily lose the enjoyment and love you have for this industry if you're dependent on it. So right. That's always something to keep in mind.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point too. Like I've dreamed of being a booktuber as just like a job, but I'm like, no, this is my hobby. I do this for fun. I do this for enjoyment. Like I'm not putting pressure on it to be like a moneymaker, because I think that would actually probably end up ruining it for me if I did that. So I'm just like, no, I'm going to keep this to the side. This is like my passion project. So
there you go. And if you can pay for a vacation once a year or pay your car payment, that's what I always tell my, author students. I'm always like, like don't lose the love for it, because it does change when you're, reliant on it.
When you're actually, no, I get that.
When your art becomes your bread and butter.
So another question I wanted to know from an actual author is like, how do you handle writer's block whenever you get that?
This is like a hotly contested topic in the writer community, because you have these authors that are like, there's no such thing as writer's block. That's no, you good? Yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
I lost you for a second, but you're back now.
So that's one side. The other side is like, no, like, and it definitely in my mind is like, you can creatively get stuck, but normally when you do get creatively stuck, it's for a specific reason. It's because you either wrote your story into a corner and your characters have nowhere to go. Or it's because you don't know your characters very well. So you started writing because you had like a plot idea, but then you've gotten stuck because you can't figure out why your characters are making these decisions, or you don't know their personality. So it's really hard to write from inside their head. So normally there's an issue, right, that's causing that. Or you've convinced yourself that your book is horrific and no one's ever going to want to read this, and you just have lost all will to continue. Right. So I've experienced all three of those. Now that I've done this for a long time, I understand that it is perfectly normal for me to hate my book with a passion when I'm like halfway through it. Like that's just a normal part of the process now. When it comes, I'm like, hey there, it's time to hate my book. I'm going to hate it for another 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'm going to fall in love with it again. So now I'm used to it. But the first time it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, like this book is horrible. And I'm 30,000 words in. I've already devoted a month to this. And what am I going to do? And I already told my readers about it. And so what did I do? I just stopped writing and it just ignored it and pretended like that book didn't exist for a period of time. But now I know, and it's part of my process, and I just keep plowing through it until I get to a part that I like again. And I can fix everything in edits later, So, but the other parts, there have been times I've been like, gosh, I just don't know my characters. And I stop and I go back and I find a muse, and I figure out who these people are, so that I can tell their story in a more natural way. And writing yourself into a corner is the hardest, because then you got to backtrack until you figure out another path to go. So you got to figure out how far back to go before you go somewhere. And I've deleted 100 pages before, because, and that hurts, Yeah. Because that was 100 nights. It wasn't 100 nights, 100 pages. That was, 20 nights that I was away from my family and up till 2 a.m. writing, and you're just flushing that down the toilet, but you got to do it. And if I was a outliner, I wouldn't be in that situation, but I am not an outliner, so I end up in situations like that, because that's what happens when you're just blindly running down the street after a plot idea with no idea what's going to happen.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. It's good that you have like ways that you can work through it. Cause I like, if I wrote something like that, I don't know how I would feel about taking out that huge chunk of like 100 pages and then just starting from that point again. That would be really hard to do. It's
why so many people end up not writing their first book, because they run into one of those three things, right? Either they're like, gosh, I just can't do this. Or typically with your first book, like everything is just such a learning curve. So it's like, how do I write a dialogue scene? I've never done it before. And now I have to describe what she's wearing in every scene? Do I only describe, what am I going to name the postman? Like, as you stop and you go online, you try to, character names are the hardest. Like my first book was named after every person in my life, because the only names you can come up with at 3 a.m. is somebody you talked to that day. So it's just funny.
Yeah. One of our viewers, Jordan, here says, I couldn't imagine backtracking 100 pages.
It's so painful. So one book I wrote 4 different endings to the book, because I finished it and I was like, oh, I don't know if I really like this. And then my beta readers were like, ah. So then I went and I wrote a completely different ending, and I ended up doing that 4 times, but people love that book now. And I'm just like, gosh, if you knew how much pain and suffering went into that book. Yeah.
Which ending did you end up choosing out of the 4?
I ended up choosing, so it was like the girl was being held captive. And I ended up, like, it's just a total plot spoiler, but probably most of your audience will read. I ended up making the girl who's being held captive the same person as another character in the book. So I actually did a very drastic change. It was from 2 different point of views. And I decided at the end to make the 2 different point of views the same person, but at different points in time. And I didn't let on that I was time shifting, until the end, when I revealed that they were the same person. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And except when the audiobook came time to narrate, and I was like, how the heck is this narrator going to do this? Because they're the same person. So I can get away with it in the book, because you can't hear someone's tone of voice, but the narrator, so I don't even know how she did it. I sold the audiobook rights, and I never ever listened to my own audiobooks, because they're so painful for me to listen to, especially ones that so I still to this day don't know what she did, but Sure, figured it out.
That's funny. Like that's interesting that you don't listen to your own audiobooks. I think it's also like a topic that for authors, I don't know for you, but like I know a lot of authors, they will not read reviews of their book because
Mhm.
they don't want that to like bring them down or anything,
That's
or like,
their process. I
yeah.
actually love to read reviews. I read negative reviews and positive reviews, but I get it. Like, but the audiobook thing, like if you interview other authors, I know you will, ask them, it's a super common thing. And part of it is because we're so dang sick of that book by the time we publish it. Like I have
You
been
still want to hear
through
it
that
again.
book. Like it's hard for me to read a book. Like I love book XYZ by author XYZ, right? I'm not going to read that. I might read that book a second time if it's just the most spectacular work of fiction I've ever encountered, but I'm not going to read it a third or fourth time. By the time I finish a book I've written, I've been through that thing 30 times. I mean, I'm so
Yeah.
sick of that book. And the thought of sitting and listening to 8 hours of someone reading it aloud to me, I mean, I just want to tear out my eyeballs. So it's very common. But the other thing is it's cringeworthy, like listening to a
Yeah.
sex scene that you've written. It's
Oh
extremely
yeah, that would be odd.
cringeworthy. Yeah. And I can't, I'm just like, oh my God, like, stop, please. It's like listen to yourself on a voice message. But even though it's not your voice, it's still like, you're like, oh my God, it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like that, does it? Yeah.
That's so funny. Okay, so with that, why don't we jump over into binge books? We'll take like a little author
Let's take a
questionnaire.
detour into
Sure.
professional territory.
Yeah, and we'll let you show us about the site. So I'll just bring it up
Yeah.
here. We have
Before
it.
we jump into it, let me just give them a quick introduction.
Okay.
So Binge Books is a book discovery site. So it's similar to Goodreads or BookBub or something like that. If you're looking for a book, you can visit Binge Books to find a book. Another future thing that we're building right now is our community. So we are about to launch our first book club, and we're going to have monthly book clubs where we have live chats with authors and readers, and you can chat with other readers on Zoom about the book. But we have groups that we're building and activities like that. So we really want to create a place where you can either hop in, find a great book and not interact with anyone if that's not what you want to do. Or if you want to find, a tight-knit community in your specific subgenre, we want to create a place for that. And we also really, we are built by authors and readers. So we really want to create a friendly environment where authors and readers can interact as much as you as a reader want to interact, So that's the gist of Binge Books. So I can give you guys a quick site tour.
Okay, so here is Binge Books.
Here we go. So one thing important to note about Binge Books, this is the homepage, is it's fiction only. Isn't to say that we won't have nonfiction in the future, but right now it's focused on fiction. So our homepage goes through, we call these carousels, and they're divided by genre. And then you can click on any specific genre, and it goes into books by that. So you can explore by subgenre, or you can just scroll through the carousels the same way you would scroll through Netflix or anything like that. And binging we're Binge Books. Binging is what we call when you read or listen to excerpts. So you can dive right in. This is mobile friendly, and read first chapters of most of the books on our site. Not all the books, but a majority of the books on our site have excerpts. And at the end, if you like it, then you can jump off site. We are not a retailer. We don't sell books. We connect you to wherever you would buy your books normally.
Right.
So
that was one of the questions I was going to ask, because like you have like the prices by them or like things like that. So I was going to ask that, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and these prices aren't 100% accurate but maybe one retailer is a different price than the other, but it's the lowest price that we're aware of for that book.
And it's really nice
our deals.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, it's really nice that you have like all the retailer options too. So it's not just limited to like Amazon or something like that. You have like a whole bunch of them. So everybody has more options.
That's a great point. And if the book is in Kindle Unlimited, it'll display that on it. Like, for example, I think this book, now, what are the chances that all the books I'm looking at are wide? But if there is a book in Kindle Unlimited, it displays it. I'm pretty sure this is over here, you can see that it's in Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, that's awesome. That's perfect.
So, and again, you can access the sample. So this is what we call binging. That's similar to if you would binge through a bunch of things on Netflix, or you know, or jump on YouTube and watch video to video. You can jump around and read different samples until you find one that appeals to you, without having to send it to a device. Yeah. So these were our major genres. We also have our Discover section, which is different things like trending deals and authors. And then the My Read section is your private area. So once you create an account on Binge Books, then this is all specific to you. So anything you've added to your want to read shelf, or currently are reading, or have already read, or have bookmarked for some reason or another. And these you can also then easily add to lists that you've created. If you've added, if you've built a list, like for example, this thrillers to read from 2020 list. And the lists are something, one of my favorite things about the site. So you can create new lists, you can import your Goodreads list if you want to bring that in, and then you can build lists on the fly and make them private or public. And once they're public, then they appear in our list section, which is here. And we put together this list with recommendations from Eric. So this is an example of what a list looks like. You would be able to rearrange this order however you like, and share this list or like it or comment on it. So this is our list section. So it's a great place to just scroll through and find books or search for whatever, you know, topic you want. But we have a ton of all user created lists, and we create some as Binge Books. So
I'm seeing a lot of books that I have enjoyed, so that's awesome. Another thing about Binge Books is the star rating.
Yeah. So if you do review a book, here you can choose ratings. And I think what Eric is probably about to mention is a half-star rating.
The half stars, yes.
Yes. So that was a comment. So we are built. We have over 120 authors on our team, but we also have a ton of readers, and that was a big thing that coming over from Goodreads. I'm a very active Goodreads user, and that was a big thing. Is people wanted to have half-star ratings, so we were excited to do that.
Absolutely.
And we also have these different kind of tags that you can do. These change based on the genre that the book is in, but it's easy ways to, choose different things that apply to the book. And then in the future, you'll be able to search for books based off these tags.
That is really cool. I didn't know that part. So that's awesome.
And so that's our star rating. And we also offer audiobooks for a lot of them. We do sell audiobooks directly. That is one thing that we do sell directly. And then groups is what we're building and improving on now. So anyone can create a book, anyone can join a book, and comment and participate in the groups. And this is where we'll also host and create book clubs. So when those launch.
I like the name of that one, the Book Nerd Alliance.
Yeah, our Book Nerd Alliance is actually our core super users. So if you are interested in becoming a book nerd, absolutely join the Alliance. And we actually have something similar to Goodreads librarians and things like that. So anyone who's interested in helping to make the site better and really give feedback and come in on the ground level, absolutely. Yeah, become a book nerd.
I like too that for your profiles, you can import the Goodreads list, because that takes all the work out of like transferring over to another thing. So obviously like you could still use Goodreads in this, but like it just makes it that much easier to bring all your books over.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that.
100%. And it's not, we are adding books. Oops, I think I closed it. You can stop the screen share.
Okay.
Unless there's something else you wanted to see on it. But we are adding books constantly. So we have over 160,000 titles now, but we're we're bringing in literally in the next 2 weeks, probably 100,000 more titles. So if you import your Goodreads list now and all of your books don't show up yet, it's because we don't have all of those books on the site. But you can just come back and we're opening it up for more authors in the next few weeks too. So a lot of exciting stuff happening on the Binge Books front.
Yeah, that's awesome. One other question I had was for your profiles, those are completely free to make?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Readers will never pay anything to participate in Binge Books.
Right.
Yeah. So it's free to have an author profile, free to join the book clubs, free to interact. Yeah. Everything's free.
Awesome. That's really cool.
Great question. I just assume people know that it's free. So I should lead with that more often. Yeah.
No, it's great. It definitely seems like it's an improvement on the star rating. That's fantastic. Yeah. Like that's what I'm most excited about, I think. And like I keep telling people, I'm like, yes, there's half stars. You got to check this out.
But that feedback is really helpful to us. And we value user feedback more than anything because we do want to build something that people have, features that people use. So we're very, very open to any feedback and any feature. If it's something we can add, then we want to at least get on the roadmap if we can't implement it sooner.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, so I have a couple more questions here that I can ask you. So since you've been published many times now, what is your favorite part of the publishing process and what is your least favorite part?
Oh, great question. I love that question. I've never gotten that question before, and I've had a lot of interviews. Okay, so I'm what you call hybrid, which means that I am traditionally published and I'm also self-published. So I'm more successful with my self-published books. I've hit the New York Times list 7 times, all with self-published books. My traditionally published books are my least successful books. And I think that that's because I have more control over the self-published books and I have full control over self-publishing. So it's nice to be in both worlds because I learn from either thing. But for me, I'm all about the power, right? So I like having 100% control over everything, whether it's the pricing or the distribution or the cover, or the interior storyline. So my favorite thing about publishing is I'd have to say, gosh, that's so tough. Right now I'm in cover design mode for my upcoming series. And that's so much fun but it's also so stressful because, like the pressure of a great cover, and a horrible cover can do it. And a lot of times you just end up with a cover that you're like, this is not what I want, but I really have to have a cover else I can't publish the same book. So I'm going to go with it. But I really love the creative process of working with a designer on your cover. It's just really exciting. It's like picking a baby name. So I love the packaging, like designing the cover and writing the description and creating advertising and how I'm going to present this book to the world. That's something I really enjoy. My least favorite thing I would have to say is without a doubt the final edits, because that's when, again, I'm so sick of reading this book and I'm combing through typos and things like that and fixing. And just when you like put it all together and you send it to the printer, then you realize that I changed the character's name at some point in time and there's still 2 more mentions of the old character's name, and somebody catches it. So I really don't like that final. At that point, I'm so anxious and ready to get it out into the world. And then there's always these tiny implementation details. That and audiobooks. I just hate dealing with audiobooks. I hate auditioning narrators. I hate sending over the script. I hate listening to it. You have to, for the ones I sell, I just sell them and I never listen to them. But the other times, like I talked about, I hate listening to it. The problem is you have to, because you have to make sure that they've done it right and that they haven't skipped paragraphs, which they do sometimes, and or mispronounced things. And I had one audiobook, I had to have the woman completely re-record it because every line that she said of my character came out so witchy. Like, this was a nice character. Like, you were supposed to like this character, right? And the person be like, oh, what are you doing for lunch today? And the woman would be like, I don't know. And I was like, no, she's just saying like, I don't know. Like, or like, I was like, it's casual, like, oh, I don't know. Like, but this lady's like, I don't know, and so every line that she said, didn't matter what it was, like, pass me the soap. She'd be like, pass me the soap. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, she has to record this entire thing over again. So I had to listen to that dang thing like 4 times. So audiobooks is my least favorite thing, but I'm getting smarter, and I hired an editor the last time. So now I just listen to the first like couple of chapters and make sure that like she's like gets my sense of humor and, and the character's tone. Mm-hmm. And then I turn it over to an audiobook proofreader, basically, who just listens to it. And if anyone listening here loves audiobooks, that's a great job for someone to have. You just listen to audiobooks and you read along with the book at the same time. And every time the narrator messes up, which they do all the time, sometimes like they're like fixing dinner while they're recording. You can hear like pots and pans in the background. You notate it and you send it to the author. So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. I had a question looping back to the book covers. Uh-huh. When you are choosing a book cover, I'm assuming they give you more than one design to go over. And then do you like beta test those with friends and family?
Yeah, so great question. So every designer is different. So the designer that I'm working at with this one right now is my most professional, in-depth designer out of my entire selection. And I choose different designers based on the books. So this one, what I do is I make really ugly mock-ups like in PicMonkey or Canva, right? Where I'm like, what if I did an outline of a person and inside the outline, whatever, I'm drawing arrows and writing stuff and, solid background, maybe flowers, and so I do something like that and I send it to her. But I gave her multiple ideas. And so she's going to create like 3 versions of the cover in each idea. So she'll send back, she sent me like 40 stock images for option 1. Like, do you like any of these? And so I picked my favorites. And then she sent me like 6 font choices. And I said, okay, these are my favorites. So she's actually going to create, like 3 versions. And normally that is her process. And in that case, then normally I go to my beta readers, or if the designer is okay with it, then I go to my reader group, which has like thousands and thousands of attendees. So I'll go to my reader group and get their opinion, because it's a great way to just create some buzz and they get excited. And sometimes I have them vote on it, but they can't see like the tally, so they don't know. And so then they have to wait till cover reveal, and then they get all excited if the one that they picked wins. And sometimes I can use the old covers, like I'll do just a special paperback edition for the cover that didn't get selected. And even if it's ugly, like people still get excited about it because they want to have that version on their shelf. But another designer I work with, she's like, she just comes up with something. And then I'll be like, no, I don't like that. Or yes, I like that. Or typically I'll just have one idea and I tell them and they'll run with that idea. And then they'll give me a few different variations of it, but it's the same gist of an idea. So, so every designer is different. And sometimes I get my readers involved, but normally the designer doesn't want me to do that because they might use that other idea for some other author, Right. So it just depends on what they're comfortable with.
I was just going to say too, I think that's cool that you got your readers involved, because like readers like nothing more than to feel included, and that like helps them feel included, which makes them more likely to want to read the book. And like, I totally get that process. I think that's
and
awesome.
It's like, I know when I was a reader, like I didn't know anything about the book process. Like it was just such a foreign concept to me. So I found everything interesting. And a lot of readers are the same way. Like they're interested in hearing the narrator audition tapes for the book, or knowing like a funny side story that ended up becoming a scene in the book. Like they're interested in that.
I think Jordan here is referring probably to getting a second job as an audiobook
As an audiobook,
person.
yeah, I like it.
That's so funny. Okay, so you've written all these books. Do you have one that is your favorite?
Absolutely. I do. Yeah. So the ghostwriter is my favorite. I keep her right beside me all the time. This is the ghostwriter. And I think I like it because the main character is a writer. So I put and she's very bitchy writer. So I don't know if I can say that word, but she
That's
is.
okay.
And so I put all of my frustration to everyone in life in this character. So she thinks all of the things that I would like to think. And yeah, so this is probably my favorite book. And this was a passion project book for me. I wrote this book and I was like, my readers are not going to be into this because it's not romance. At the time, I only wrote romance. And I was like, and I probably won't sell a single copy, but I don't care because I love this book so much. And I want this book. So yeah, so that was the ghostwriter. So that is probably my favorite. And the other one that I do like a lot is Hollywood Dirt, which is a romance. And this was my first big book. Well, actually it wasn't. This was the New York Times. This was my second New York Times bestseller. But my husband was going through cancer when I wrote this. And this was like my escape. Like I just dove into this small town, and it's based in a small town, which I grew up in a small town. So it was like I was going through all the memories of growing up like on a dirt road and in the middle of nowhere. And it was just such a fun book. Like I just love this book. And this book was made into a movie. So I have all the, mental, like emotions and memories of that.
Yeah.
And this is the movie cover they did. And in the back, this is the movie edition. I put like a bunch of photos from filming and stuff like that. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So,
That's
so
awesome.
that's my other favorite book, baby.
Nice. So then my next question was going to be, who is your favorite character that you've ever written? But I have a feeling it's the one from the ghostwriter.
It's the one from the ghostwriter, probably. Yeah. Even though she's like she's an anti-hero. Oh, actually, no, she's not my favorite character. Sorry, Helena. My favorite character. Sorry.
Classic author move is apologizing to her characters.
My favorite character is Deanna Madden. So this chick likes to kill people. And yeah, she's homicidal, but she doesn't want to kill people because she's a good person. But so she battles between this urge to kill people and trying not to kill people. So she's locked herself in her apartment and hasn't left her apartment in 3 years because she's so worried she's going to kill somebody, and she's killed somebody in the past. And so she works as an online like stripper. Like she interacts with men online and women online through her webcam. So, but they all think she's like a college chick, like this fun loving party college chick. And they don't know that she has these like dark, disturbing, things that keep her in line. She's like super rich because all she does is she's online like 18 hours a day. So she's my favorite character because she's totally kick butt, and she's just like, she's great. Like she will, yeah. Deanna's all, this character's all my like grouchy moments, and she's all my like aggressive, like, like, let's take it outside. I'm going to kick your butt, and I'm like anti-confrontational. So she's uber confrontational. So yeah.
That's actually so funny. I love that.
The tiniest like version. I don't know why it's so tiny.
It's awesome that like you can see how much emotion you put into your characters. That's really cool. Okay, one of my other questions was, who is your favorite author? Or do you have multiple favorite authors?
I didn't, you broke up. Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear it.
Oh, sorry. The question was, who is your favorite author?
Oh, Gillian Flynn. Jillian. I don't know how you pronounce her name.
Yeah, it's a debate. Everybody says one or the other.
I have no idea how to pronounce her name. But she's without a doubt my favorite author. I also really like Lane Mortery. Also might have mispronounced her name, but she just does such fantastic characters. So I like reading her books too, because her character development is awesome. So those are my two favorites. And Lisa Gardner. Sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay. So you like thrillers then?
Yeah,
These
and
are
the
like,
girl with the dragon tattoo guy whose name I will never be able to pronounce.
I don't even
Steg
know who that
Larson,
is.
maybe. I don't. That might be his name. That might not be his name. But yeah, but he passed away. So I don't. Someone else writes his books now. But I love that series. But he only had 3 books before he passed away. So
Okay. I got 3 more quick questions for you, and then
let's do it.
I'll let you go. Okay. So my third last question is, what was your favorite book or story you read when you were younger?
Oh, so when I was young, like the first book that I remember really loving was True Adventures of Charlotte Doyle. And I read that like probably when I was like in 5th or 6th grade. And that was probably the first book that I just like loved. And I just remember like feeling like I was in that story. And it's about a girl who's like kidnapped by pirates. And so that was the first book that probably like sparked my love of reading. And then I was really like Jurassic Park was another book that I just really loved. I was on a Michael Crichton like kick for a while, where I read all of his books. But nothing really, like I remember reading that book, but there wasn't really another book that really stood out to me. But I also just read so much, so yeah, I don't really remember another book that really, that I really loved. This is going to be something I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I should have said this book. How could I have forgotten this book that I love so much? But yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, that's fine. Another question. I haven't actually asked any author this question before, but I'm curious to know how many bookshelves you have in your house.
Oh my gosh. It's a great question because so I live in Key West, Florida, which is like a small, for those of y'all who don't know, it's a small island at the very southernmost tip of Florida. So we're like I am closer to Cuba than I am to a Walmart right now. The reason Key West matters is because we're a small island and space is like extremely limited. So most houses are like 8 to 900 square feet. And so our house is bigger, but it's still, I'm in the garage right now. The fact that we have a garage is like crazy in this town, but I'm in the garage right now. So I have these bookshelves and I have 2 other bookshelves, but I have boxes. I have a wall of boxes that is books. And I had to pack up when we moved down here. I had to put all of my books into boxes, and so it used to be when I met my husband, and we've now been married 14 years, but when I met my husband and we moved like every 6 to 12 months, we were just moving all the time from, because he was in real estate and we were always buying a different house and changing houses. And every time we would move with books, it was this big like argument, like, why do you have so many books? You've already read these books. This was before I was a writer. You've already read them. You don't reread them. Like all we're doing is moving books from one house to another. And so I really like weeded down my book collection a lot because it was true. Like I never reread books, but it seems crazy to throw away a book, So I donated a lot of my books but then once I became an author, I said, okay, you are not allowed to ever complain about a book in our house again, because now this is my job and it's a business expense and I'm allowed to now have as many books as I want. So now I hoard books like crazy. But most of them are in boxes because I don't have room for them in my house.
So you became an author just so you could hold this over your
just
husband.
So I could say, I don't want to hear anything more about books.
Oh man, that's interesting though. Like I didn't know that it was like not a lot of space in Key West, Florida. I've been to Florida, but not like Key West.
We're only 3 miles long. The island's 3 miles long, and everything was built like in the 1900s, something like that. So the houses are all like crammed. Like no one has room for like anything. Like, I mean, you might have one tiny closet, in your master bedroom that y'all are both splitting. So yeah, space is extremely tight on the island, but that's good because then no one accumulates stuff. So
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
that's good.
that works out.
Okay, so my last question for you is, are you working on anything presently right now that is coming out anytime soon?
So when I came on board at I at first was just one of the 120 authors. There was a different executive team, but I was and am a huge Goodreads fan, and I was like, man, if I could get on the ground level and build Goodreads from scratch, like how amazing would that be, right? And that was sort of my mindset. It was like, this could be everything that I want Goodreads to be, and so it was really important to me that I get involved, and that's how I ended up where I am now, with binge books. But so because of that, I have very little time for writing. So I used to write 3 to 4 books a year, typically 4. Now I'm down to 1 or 2 books a year. I am writing a book now. It's a romance. It's supposed to be a series of romance, but it's going extremely slowly. So I'd hate to so it's going to be called Fallen Star. But I do have a publisher book with Thomas and Mercer that's coming out in June-ish. June or July, I should really know that answer to that, called The Good Life. And that for sure is on the calendar. I know that's going to be my next release. It's about a serial killer in Beverly Hills. It's a psychological suspense, and I'm super excited for that one. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really exciting. For anybody that is watching or has been watching, we're going to put all of Alessandra's information down below so you guys can go check out her website where all her books are and go see what else she has written that she hasn't talked about in the stream. So I guess with that, we'll probably wrap up. And yeah, thanks to everybody that came by, and thank you to you for showing us binge books and just chatting about your books that you wrote.
I'm so excited. Let me ask you a quick question before we sign off. So what's been your favorite book that you've read recently? Like, if I'm going to the bookstore this week, any books that you recommend I grab? I don't like science fiction, but I love general fiction. I love general fiction. I love suspense. I don't really like fantasy. So hopefully you have a recommendation that's not.
That's tough because well, it's just tough because like all the ones that I've recently really enjoyed are sci-fi and fantasy. I did actually
or if I want to take a baby step into science fiction, is there like, oh my gosh, you should read this book, it would cause you to love science fiction, you'll never read another genre ever again?
Well, there's a series that I really like that my boyfriend actually got me onto, and it's called the Illuminae Files, but I don't know if that's like one that you would dip your toes in for science fiction.
A cover for this. So is it a cliffhanger? Do I have to read like the whole series, or could I just read the first one and I could be like emotionally satisfied?
You could just read the first book and that would be it. Like you wouldn't have to continue the series, but all 3 books are kind of like standalones, but they fit together, if that makes sense. I
like this recommendation because I've seen this cover, and the cover, I liked the cover enough that I remember it. So, and I like Hugh Howey, so I guess it's science fiction, right?
It's the thing with Illuminae is it's told in mixed media format, so like that is interesting for different readers. Like not everybody likes it, so it'll be like a whole bunch of different formats.
Like, what do you mean mixed media? Like,
so some pages will be like in like a memo format, or it's like telling a story.
I love that sort of thing. I love
about things that happen where it's like email or like messages back and forth. It's kind of like that. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff because it's essentially telling a story of something that happened, and they're telling the story through like security tapes and like things like that, if that makes sense.
I love that. I'm excited. Okay.
And then I do have a recommendation. One popped into my head. I recently just finished The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta.
I have the cover. I have it on my want to read list. Yeah, because I love the cover. Yeah, it caught my eye 100%, and it's good.
It's told in verse, so like it's a really fast read. I read it in a day and a half, and yeah, it was really good. It's just like the story of a boy's life as he grows up. He eventually becomes a drag queen, and it's just like it's really interesting to see his story from start to finish. And I'm not normally like a character driven reader, but this book was like, it was perfectly okay with me. Like I loved it, and so like I was really happy with that. And then okay, I have one more recommendation.
Oh,
I'm just
bring
like,
it on. I love
they're all
it.
like popping into my head as we go. It's called The Speed of Falling Objects by Nancy something. Oh, I can't remember her last name right now.
The Speed of Falling Objects. I mean, how many books are going to be called that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool cover too. It's about a girl who, her father is kind of like a Bear Grylls. So he has like a TV show where he goes out into the wilderness and survives, but he brings celebrities with him. And so the daughter, she wants to kind of like connect with her dad, and so she goes with him on one of their travels. I think it's into like the Amazon or something, and he also has like a teen heartthrob celebrity that's there with him while she's also on this trip. And it also has disability rep because she only has one eye from like a childhood trauma. So yeah, it was a really good book, and it was like
Speed of Falling Objects. Is that right?
By
Okay,
Nancy Fisher.
Nancy Fisher.
Yeah.
All right, and Black Flamingo is the other one.
Yeah, by Dean Atta.
Yeah, I know. I have that on my list already, so I gotta.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed those books, but I'd be curious to see what you thought about them.
I love it, and the Illuminati files, right? Is that right? Illuminati. All right, Illuminati files. Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna circle back. I'm gonna make myself accountable, and I'm gonna let you know what I think.
Okay.
I love it.
I will be curious.
Thank you so much. It was so great to be here. Thanks, Jordan.
All right. Bye, everybody.